Hello guys, Eamon here and we'll be covering GoPro's industry analysis in this portion of the video. For this segment, we will be looking at GoPro's position in the action camera industry as a whole, and we will be breaking down their key economic indicators and where they stand using the Porter Five Forces model. This is the industry analysis portion of the presentation for GoPro, where we'll be looking at the action camera industry as a whole, as well as GoPro's position in there. We will be looking at some of the key economic indicators for the action camera industry, and then we will be conducting a Porter Five Forces model analysis on GoPro, where we analyze their threat of rivals, their threat of substitutes, of new entries, of buyers, and of suppliers, and then we'll end with a summary of everything we talked about, just really quick to wrap it up. So that being said, the key economic indicators for the action camera industry and GoPro specifically are a rise in disposable income of their consumers. So this is often a good thing due to the fact that not many people use action camera photography as a main source of their personal income. It's more of a hobby or just something people enjoy doing. So by their disposable income rising, they can spend more on this hobby, and this will in turn benefit GoPro and the action camera industry as a whole, since people will be spending more on their products. Now, diving into the threat, the Porter Five Forces model, the first one we will analyze is their threat of rivals, and this is a high-level threat for GoPro. The three main rivals that we will be looking at in this portion are Sony, Garmin, and Psyonix, and how each individual one compares to GoPro. So Sony focuses more on their digital cameras. They're not super interested in the action camera market at this point in time, and their action cameras are cheaper than GoPro, but are more expensive than some of the other action cameras in the markets. So in this situation, GoPro benefits from the fact that they are heavily invested in just action cameras, and Sony are more spread out through television, music, video games, phones to an extent, just other markets and other industries that they've heavily invested in. So the action camera industry for them is more of a second thought, and GoPro just putting in more effort has really helped them to stay above Sony. Now, this is not as much applicable to the next company, which is Garmin. And Garmin is often thought of as just a GPS technology company, but they've actually began using their GPS technology with their action cameras. And Garmin fully understands their niche position in the market, and then in that they are combine their GPS technology with their action cameras, and this is strictly what they have been working on and focusing on when it comes to the action camera market. So they have very high quality products, and people have been giving them very high reviews, and a couple, while rare at this stage, a couple articles and analysts have actually been guessing and believing that in the next couple of years, Garmin will end up purchasing GoPro. So that's a very high level risk for the company. And then the third company is Psyonix and their Aurora action cameras. So the Aurora action cameras are very similar, sometimes even higher in price to GoPro, and they are better quality and have more features. Yet, and very much so in this specific example, GoPro's brand name is really what sets them apart and keeps them in the lead when compared to Psyonix. So whereas Psyonix does have, good cameras, GoPro's been in the market for so long, and people know GoPro and know what GoPro stands for and are familiar with their name and product. So this has really helped them, at least for the time being, to stand out in front of Psyonix and also Sony and Garmin to an extent. So the next Porter Five Forces, it will be the threat of substitutes, and similar to the rivals, this is a high level threat. As smartphones are becoming more and more popular and commonplace, their picture quality and camera quality are also increasing, and as a result, other third-party companies such as LifeProof and ProShot have been coming out with cases and entire kits that can turn your everyday smartphone into a pseudo action camera that uses the high quality cameras the phone has, but also protects them with waterproof casing and other equipment that they can actually attach these phones and mount them on their bikes or helmets, or just body parts that will allow them to turn their everyday phone into an action camera. And it's often a much cheaper alternative than to going out and buying a GoPro. So as these become more popular, GoPro will face a very real threat from these substitutes unless they make their product cheaper or figure out a way to improve their product quality to the extent where this won't bother them anymore. The next threat is the new entrants, and this is another high one, mainly because GoPro does not have any intellectual property, or IP for short. And what this translates to is them not having any patents on their technology or materials they use. So it's often very easy for another person or another company to start producing these cameras almost completely mirroring the technology GoPro uses and selling them at a discount. And if a company does this and does this well and uses the same technology for their physical cameras as GoPro does, while also maybe coming up with something new that GoPro hasn't thought of, they could garner a following similar to how GoPro has done in their tenure and really challenge GoPro's market share. This is another example where GoPro's brand name is one of the only things protecting them. So the next threat is from the buyers, and this is only a medium level one, mainly because the buyers have not exercised their power at this point. And in all honesty, they have a good amount, but not truly enough to really push GoPro. The buyers are in a weird position with GoPro because not only do they purchase the GoPro products, but GoPro often uses a lot of user-generated content for their marketing and ads. So through people buying the cameras and uploading their shots and videos, they do some of the marketing for GoPro. So while it seems like it puts a lot of the power in the buyer's hands, they really have not exercised this, and it doesn't seem like they will anytime soon. Or the GoPro consumer base is very loyal. So the threat of substitutes and choosing a rival hasn't really come to fruition just yet. But there's a pretty significant possibility that if GoPro doesn't get a handle on this or change some things, that this could become a high-level threat in the near to distant future. And lastly, we have the threat of suppliers, which is a very low one for GoPro. And this is really just due to the fact that there are so many suppliers in the action camera industry for the materials that if one of them were to try and take a larger position of power, GoPro could easily switch to another company. And this actually came to fruition a couple months ago when GoPro pulled some of their production out of China due to the ongoing tariff battle between the U.S. and China, and really did not suffer any consequences or ill effects by switching to another supplier. And it didn't really stop their production too much. So just in summary, beginning with our key economic indicators, remember, as disposable income rises, so will the action camera industry's profits, and GoPro do better as people have more money to spend on their products. The threat of the rivals are high, since the rivals produce cheaper cameras of similar quality, and at this point, GoPro's brand name is one of the only things helping them, and theoretically can only help them for so long. The threat of substitutes is also high. Samsung, Apple, other phone companies that are increasing the camera quality, and then third parties like LifeProof and ProShot, who are coming out with cases and entire phone kits that can challenge GoPro and turn their everyday phones into action cameras, are really a serious threat to GoPro. Next, we have the threat of new entrants is high, since there genuinely is a lack of barriers to entry in this market, and as a result, it's very easy to copy the technology and produce it cheaper and more efficiently. The threat of buyers is simply medium, since for GoPro, the consumers are important, from the people who buy their products to the people who advertise for them through their generated content, but they are a very loyal consumer base, and this has not really come to be any more difficult for GoPro than anything else. And lastly, we have the threat of suppliers, which is low, since GoPro and other camera companies use so many different suppliers. There's not a particularly high threat of the suppliers taking control of the supply chain. Thank you very much.